Hello everyone, Kristina here with your Divine Love reading for the week of November, what? How about March? March 20th through the 26th. Welcome to the 21st century, I think. All right. Actually, that was such a weird thing, and it's at the beginning, I should probably stop, but I'm not going to edit that. I am going to direct you to maybe something that was going on in November. Because that might hold some clues for some of you. They're telling me right now, it's not for everybody, but it's for some of you, that there was something going on in November, and that is coming to bear this week. So, whoa, that was probably one of the craziest ways I've gotten a message. All right, well, let's get underway then. I'm actually going to leave the equinox eclipse. Maybe I'll change it to equinox, but I'm going to leave that special up all the way through the end of March. I'm just really feeling like these energies are persisting in a pretty major way. Like the clearing energy is really persisting. This is spring, it's spring cleaning, and if you are in the southern hemisphere, welcome to fall, which is also a time of clearing. This is when all of the trees start shedding their leaves, and this is really a time. It doesn't matter where you are on the planet, maybe in the tropics. Wow, this is really giddy energy today. But no matter where you are on the planet, that this is a time of just like really shedding and clearing, and you'll see as we get into the cards that is an energy that is persisting. I mean, we got Hawthorne again. The other thing that's going to be different, I'm changing up a few of the decks that I'm using in different placements, and in the last couple readings just really went super long, so I also I'm going to try to truncate this, not to like truncate the message, but to be a little bit more concise. So let's get underway. On our side, the energy surrounding us this week is the Six of Farms. In the traditional tarot, you'll see this as a card where it's like there will be like it's like charity, okay? Like somebody's being given charity. It's the Six of Pentacles. It's coins and generosity, and sometimes it will be about people learning how to receive when they're in need. I really like this Six of Farms, the way that the feeling is coming out this week, especially with some of the other cards on our side. This is about like the meeting and breaking of bread between equals. So even if there has been an act of generosity, like the inviting of someone into your home, who might be a little less well off than you, and like breaking bread with them as an act of generosity, there's a real sense of like, don't do this because you need to build yourself up as like, I'm such a good person, like that, like kind of like what I was talking about last week with the flowers. It's not because like, oh, I'm such a good person and I'm doing something for someone who's in such a terrible place. It's like, no, like it becomes an act of love, an act of, an expression of divinity, because you're just saying like, wow, we have different lots in life right now, and I see you for the human being that you are. Let's break bread together as equals. Okay, and so do you see how that's a very different energetic space than, oh gosh, I do all of this volunteer work and I'm so special and good in the world. It's like, ugh. If that's your intention, then that's like totally egoic, and like, yeah, you are doing a good work in the world, but the intention kind of grosses it up a little. So this energy around us, like in terms of what it means for getting in alignment with a divine love, this is about divine love expressing itself through you, about just seeing everyone as the pure and beautiful soul that they are. And if you have been treating your counterpart as a charity case, I think this might be the big message this week. If you've been treating your counterpart as a charity case, you need to get yourself in check about that, because they are an equal. They are a beautiful soul that wants to stand on equal footing with everyone around them, and you do too. So why would you behave in such a way as to put your it's like you love them into a space of inferiority, like that. You see how that's not in alignment? Okay, so this is the energy surrounding us. Like the time is good for us to really kind of take a look at ourselves and, oh, have I been doing that? Am I treating my counterpart as a charity case, or am I treating them as an equal? Okay, all right. Pulling us out of alignment, this is interesting. We've got the Three of Deserts. This card keeps coming up. It didn't come up last week, but I do believe it came up the week before, but it's still about this. I really feel like it's about kind of this, this is more of a directive more than it's a, like, here's what you're doing. How do I say this? Okay, so let's start with the meaning that we had for it before, which was the colors with the sky. This is the throat chakra, and then this orange with the sun as well, being the sacral, and getting those two kind of in better communication with each other. So being able to speak and create. Okay, and what they're saying is, like, as a thing that is kind of pulling you out of alignment, it's when you see this as something that is external to you. So if you write, say this is writing, okay, or if you're speaking, if you're doing this like to get to something else that is external, okay, so out there somewhere, that's a thing that gets you out of alignment. And I feel like this is also a little bit about impatience, which is another theme that is coming up big time this week. It really does feel like the energies are ramping up, and so it's like everyone's kind of looking at the horizon, waiting for their counterpart to come in, right? Or whatever. It's like you're waiting, and you can feel something that's about to happen, and it's like this so intent on looking at that horizon that you're not being in the here and now. Okay, and so that's why it's going to be really important to, like, oh, they're coming back. Like, ooh, how do I express this? If you're in a constant state of waiting, that is a state of lack. Okay, like, oh, I don't have this, and so once that thing comes in from over the horizon, then things will be better. Okay, it's that state that is out of alignment with divine love. If you can be, and this is really about like just changing your thought, if you can be expressive in the world in ways that are just meeting people exactly where they are, not as acts of charity, and not as someone that you need to meet expectations for, like, so not that you are inferior either, like you don't need to become good enough for them. Of course you're good enough already, right? Okay, so kind of getting into this space of equality, of equals, and I'm amazed at how shouting / coherent everything is. And this is interesting. This is what's bringing us into alignment when we are kind of in this state. This is the Page of Seas. It's a message in a bottle. And I think it's really interesting that both of these are, the teal is communication, so maybe it's not so much about our speaking as much as it is about like us waiting for the thing to come in over the horizon. The message in the bottle, you can't wait for something like that. It just appears, right? I mean, like nobody goes combing, like you don't go, oh, I gotta go to the beach today because my message in a bottle is arriving. That's not how it works. Messages in bottles arrive, they're kind of serendipitous, and see, it's an act of synchronicity too, but it's never the kind of thing that you can expect. And when you're in that state of expecting, I just think this is so interesting, because this is a desert and this is the sea, and these could not be more opposite in terms of, like, this is devoid of flow. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've lived in the desert for more of my life than I haven't, and so I love the desert, but it is also a space where, I know one of my healer friends, she's incredible intuitive, but she had to move. She feels more comfortable in the desert because water is so conductive, like it's such a conductor of this kind of spiritual energy. And for her, it's a lot easier to live in the desert because without the moisture, it keeps those messages from totally bombarding her. Okay, and so, but in this case, this desert actually is a, like when you're looking expectant with so much expectation toward the horizon, it is you kind of sucking the moisture out and making it so that spirit doesn't have a medium through which to operate. Okay, I hope that makes sense. You know, especially in comparison, by contrast to this page of C's. It's like there are messages that are waiting to come to you, but you can't, if you're, this is still about the ways that expectation pushes things away. So this is, you know, get back into that state of surrender, and being just like totally open. I'm going to the beach because I'm going to the beach, and without doing anything around, there may or may not be a message in a bottle waiting for me. Because as soon as you've said that, like, the expectation has been placed. Okay, so this is really about like being open to whatever signs come your way, because there have actually been, they're telling me right now, there's been a lot that you've totally missed because you've been looking so hard. Okay, all right, moving on. You know, we're just going to go straight to our feminine card. The quick overview, I do masculine and feminine cards for each side, because we are, part of getting into alignment is making sure that our masculine and feminine energies are balanced on an individual basis. So here we have the feminine energy this week, sorry about the glare, is Lilith, and her keyword is equality. I mean, right? And her story is really about her refusal to be treated as inferior or treated as subordinate. But what she does with that, she doesn't say, I'm not going to be inferior, you're inferior. Like, she doesn't do that dumb reversal, which keeps a power structure, like a power imbalance in place. She doesn't do that. She just says, no, just let me stand on equal footing with you. Let's break bread together as equals. And I think this is also having to do with us being in the equinox energy now. You know, the equinox is on the 20th, which would be the first day for this reading. But as you know, like, the energies kind of bleed into the other weeks, and it doesn't really, it's like, for as long as you're working with that energy, it will stay with you. So this energy with Lilith is really about, like, don't treat yourself or your counterpart as a charity case, and neither should you treat yourself or your partner as someone who's giving you charity and like is like throwing you a bone. Like, no, just be on equal footing with your partner so that you guys can be like actual partners. It just seems like so many things are coming into balance, and you know, there's a lot of, again, this is another week where there's a lot of crosstalk, and what I'm really feeling like they're telling me more about that, like it's a combination of being increased crosstalk as well as persistent crosstalk between the cards, or the spread, and it feels like that, like, the energies being more entwined between the partners, like that there's a weaving of the energies, so it's not so much, so even though you can't see what's going on with them, or maybe you know, for some of you who are in a little bit more contact, even though you can't see all of it, there's a weaving going on here. And you know, we've always had that, like I've talked about the hardwiring connection, we always have this energetic connection and like the pulling and you know, like that kind of stuff, but this just feels like the two counterparts are getting more into this kind of energetic, I don't want to say union, because that word union at this point, if you've been watching, you know, if you've been on your journey for a while, it just comes with such baggage around what our 3D expectations for romantic relationships. I'll just put it that way. I mean, yes, I know that so many people are hoping and waiting for that, and I'm not saying that that's not part of the deal, okay, or that it's not available. What I'm saying is, like, when we are in this kind of energetic space, energetic weaving, this just feels so entwined. It feels integrated. That was the word. Oh my gosh, that took me so long. There's a real energetic integration going on between the partners. So this push and pull, like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this, you know, wounded behavior and triggering all of my wounds? Like, we're just, like, you can see, like, I'm even getting away from that old language of runner, chaser, wounding, triggering, like that language is also is so embedded with its own baggage that people are using as crutches, okay, to excuse a lot of their own non-movement, their own non-healing. And so, whoa, okay, sorry, that was like 3 things in my head. So all of this stuff that's kind of coming in, it's like we're doing stuff, like we're kind of getting on the ball, they're getting on the ball, and it's not we can feel the energy, which makes us think that something big is going to happen right away. But they're saying, like, no, it's big energy, it's a big deal, but let go of the expectations, because it's not happening the way you think. It's putting things in place that can make some other things happen that are just better and bigger. Better is even better, has a weird has some weird strings on it, but it's like it's just bigger than what you can imagine, and you got to trust it. Okay. All right. The masculine energy is Akat. This is interesting. This is a Mayan god, and we have another Mayan. There's some Mayan stuff. We get chocolate this week, and so we've got some Mayan energy. I would say if you, this is for a very small portion of the audience. If you have ties to Mexico, any reason to go to Mexico, if you are in Mexico or near it, this is like, they're just, for some of you, that this Mexican, the indigenous Mexican Mayan energy, so not the Spanish influence stuff, okay, so it's the stuff, it's pre-colonial. That stuff, there's knowledge in there for you. And actually, so, I'm from New Mexico, or sort of, whatever. It doesn't matter. I lived in New Mexico last, before I moved where I am now. The University of New Mexico has a course on curanderismo of Mexican indigenous healing practice. So it's very herbal. It's embedded in herbalism. You can take it for credit. You can also take it as a continuing ed, and I think their fee for that is like $350 or something like that. And there used to be a version that was like a MOOC. Okay, so that's like the mass online something community. I can't remember what the second O stands for. But anyway. They used to offer it as a MOOC, and it was just like a free online thing. That may or may not still exist. I mean, it's been in development for a while. This would be, I think, maybe the 3rd or 4th year they've been doing it. But if you have any inclination whatsoever toward curanderismo, curanderas, so if you've seen the film, oh shoot, I'm going to miss that one too, Bless Me Ultima, that's kind of part of the same... the woman in there, she's a curandera. So anyway, all of this, oh my gosh, I was gonna keep this short this week, and this is like the biggest bird walking extravaganza. So if you have any kinds of inclinations toward herbalism, curanderismo, any of those kinds of indigenous healing practices, and it doesn't have to be Mexican necessarily, this is just the cue they were giving me. If you have any other herbalist, access to any herbalist knowledge, learning, healing practices that are regional to wherever you are, then definitely go look at those. I mean, I am in, I'm in kind of right now it's the U.S. Southwest / Rocky Mountains, but it was New Spain, and it was Mexico, and it was a lot of things before it was any of these other political names. So all of that to say, find out about the indigenous healing practices where you are located, because you are located there for a reason, and this is about like kind of delving back down through kind of the spiritual archaeology and getting at these other knowledge practices. Okay. So a new thing that I'm doing this week, I think I didn't even count, it probably ends up being more cards, but so I do, I changed part of the spread from advice to like what's growing in our garden, And this week I got called to pull cards for what's growing in our individual gardens. And what's so funny about it is that what's growing in our individual gardens is still, like I said, in that same woven, it's basket woven together. So so this is these are the Bach flower essences. There's a divination deck that goes with them, and so I was like, oh, I love reading unlikely sources. Like, I like reading unlikely decks. So this, on our side, what's growing in our garden, or it's like a remedy. I need to figure out what I'm calling this, but it was just like pull a flower card over here, okay? So we've got wild rose, and so my intention when I pulled it was, what is growing in our garden this week? What is blossoming in our garden this week? And I really like the idea more of like what's blossoming, and so, like, the competing energies, if you are in an unhealed state or a state that needs attention, it's like being resigned to your lot in life and being kind of apathetic. And it's a little bit of a giving up energy. But the remedy for that is like this enthusiasm, inspired vitality, motivation for change, and ambition. This is enthusiasm. And what I love about, look at the back of these cards. Isn't this just great? Okay, so I can't read that backwards, so I'm going to read it to you. It says, if you do not hope, you will not find what is beyond your hopes. And it's like this, hope is different than expectation, right? So you can't see what's beyond the horizon because you're looking too hard. It's like, it might be coming from over here. All right, I might be being a little too specific with this. And then the second quote on here is, enthusiasm is that secret and harmonious spirit which hovers over the production of genius. Oh, you know what else? Sorry, I just totally didn't finish my thought about him. Akat is about dedication, and the advice about him was to finish something that has been unfinished. Like, this is about tying up loose ends, bringing things to conclusion, not your partnership. So settle down. This is actually about you and your projects. Like, if you've got a writing project, if you are in the process of a career change, this is really about, like, take the leap already. The universe, I think, wasn't this was the reading, I think I told you about this woman last week. I don't know if I told this part of the story, but it was like, the universe is trying to offer you this big pile of money, but you have to make room for it. You have to let that other income source go, because you have this idea that is your stable income source, and it is not. It is the thing that is dragging you down. So this is like, tie up the loose ends so you can make some room for all of this abundance and prosperity to come in. So you can get yourself unstuck and be enthusiastic, like find an income source that makes you happy, Yeah, well, okay, they're like, that's it. That was what you're supposed to say. Okay, and I have to say, this is it's like, this says in one card what is being said in like 3 cards on the counterpart side. So let's go ahead and look at what's happening with them. We'll start with the tarot cards. Starting with the energies that are currently surrounding them. They have the 3 of Seas. This actually is about enthusiasm, they are being encouraged to get into the water. This is usually a card about celebration, but this is actually, you can see this one penguin who's kind of behind the other 2. This is an energy that is about, they're being called to kind of rejoin their social circles again. I feel like I talked about this last week. Like, this is a tension that they've been having. Like, how much do they want to reach out and lean on their social networks? And I don't mean media. I mean, like, the people, the human beings who are in their lives, who they know care about them. And they've been kind of in that, like, that was the 4 of Cups, right? Like, no, they won't take the stupid cup. And they're like, maybe I should take the cup. And I really like this for them. We've all been sort of hoping for this for them. And it doesn't matter if we're not one of these penguins. It really, it doesn't matter. They just need to be kind of reintegrating themselves into their own lives, their own kind of, when I say lives, I'm looking at my flowers. It's like their own kind of thriving version of themselves. So that's what's surrounding them this week. That's kind of nice. Pulling them out of alignment is, man, the 6 of Seas. This tends to dog a lot of people who are in these twin flame divine love relationships. This is old wounding around rejection, around abandonment. It's any inner child stuff, anything they learned in childhood about, the ways their kid logic got some things about love wrong. Okay, and some of it could be because they were legitimately taught that by the adults around them, but some other parts of it could be, that they just misinterpreted, because our kid logic isn't totally formed yet, and there are a lot of ways that that kids can see the world more clearly than adults can because they don't have all that crap on them. But sometimes kids just kind of miss the mark, and it's like when they kind of this feels, it's like when they kind of regress back to that hurt child place. That's what pulls them out of alignment, and they are. What's happening for them this week is they are cycling through okay, I'm in it, oh, I'm out, okay, but I have hope, and oh, but no, it's scary, they're kind of cycling between those two places, but it's the thing that they're working through. Okay, it's like healing is not linear, so they're in the cycling space, and you'll see the soul card even. They're speaking so loudly and so clearly right now. Okay, so drawing them into alignment is the Hanged Man, and this is actually about them allowing themselves to have a parachute. Instead of letting themselves free fall, they're this is their social network, this is this is their own abilities. They have their own strength, and it's like they're allowing themselves to also go at their own pace. So I think I talked about my dad a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, about his own healing process after his heart attack. He didn't go full bore crazy style downhill mountain biking. He walked to the end of the street for a few weeks, and then he walked further than that, and then he kind of tried the bike thing. And his neighbor was an avid mountain biker, and those guys would go tear it up every weekend, or a few times a week. They invited my dad, and they were so kind and patient to invite him, and my dad would go to one of the cross streets for a while, and then would turn around and go home while they went all the way to the mountain and then did all their ride. And then when he did finally join them, they were really kind and waited for him. And it's so, my dad could have been oh, I hate being waited. I hate when people are waiting on me. It creates so much chaos just inside me. So yeah, January was probably worse because I knew that people were waiting on me. This is them allowing themselves to let other people be generous toward them. So it's not about being the charity case, but just being so grateful that someone wants to meet with them at all. That sounds weird, but do you know what I'm saying? In the case of my dad, those guys mountain biking, they would climb this whole mountain, and they would get there, and they would wait 30 minutes for 30 minutes, you guys, they would wait. And then he, and my dad didn't feel embarrassed or ashamed about it. He just was grateful. That's the space when your counterpart is in that space of not feeling bad or judging themselves or feeling guilty and all of that other crud that we put on ourselves. When they get out of that, it's they're so much better able to they're able to be a conduit for love. Okay, because part of love is not just giving it out, but also receiving. And it's oh, I can be a recipient of love. This is an act of caring. This is when my friends are around me and and checking on me, or whatever they're just being. That's an act of love, and they're kind of they're coming to some clarity about that, and allowing it to be the parachute that keeps them from just smacking into the ground full bore. And I just totally shook my camera. Sorry about that. So this is really nice, and it's allowing themselves to kind of be their own parachute too, All right. So let's move on now to their masculine and feminine energies. So we've got, as the feminine energy, we have Persephone. Her keyword is cycles, and this is as much about the changing of the seasons. We are in the equinox. This is kind of this is the gateway, the turning point. This is that moment of balance when the days start to become longer if you are, well, I mean, actually, sorry, I just totally biffed that. That happens at the solstice. In the equinox, this is when day and evening become are equal, of equal length. And now the daylight hours, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the daylight hours are going to become much longer than the night hours. I mean, because since the equinox, or excuse me, since the solstice, daylight has been continually becoming longer. Okay, but regardless. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, this is about night becoming longer and allowing a little bit more of the shadow, you know, all of that Jungian shadow work to be looked at a little bit more closely. So regardless, this is about, you know, the changing of the seasons, the moving from one season into the next, and the cycles that, you know, the more things change, the more they remain the same, but also, like, when we come back around to it, we see it with new eyes. And so this is that kind of cycling. But this is also, once you see, this is also a little bit of their own cycling around, like, oh, am I gonna still come back to my old habit, my old script around what I think love is, my old uninformed, misinformed kid logic, okay? Am I going to do that, or am I going to allow love to hold me? Okay, am I going to allow love to provide that that safety net for me? And so they are in a space of cycling between that. But I do feel like they're coming, like the because this is a feminine energy. Both feminine energies on both sides this week are kind of about this. It's about this moment of the equinox. Like, okay, so now we are at equilibrium. So the cycling on this side is about finding equilibrium, and this one is about inhabiting equilibrium and being in equilibrium. And the more that, like, us on our side are able to really, like, inhabit this, the more we kind of provide that stabilizing, anchoring energy that this cycling can gravitate toward, and kind of, like, you know, those like a pendulum, it'll start like this, but with every sequential swing, consecutive swing, it gets the distance gets smaller and smaller until it finally, like, settles in the center. And I like these two energies together are very much that, and that's the feminine at work. The masculine energy, I like this a lot too. We've got Anubis, and the keyword is protection. This is more almost like a message to, you know, those of you who are watching this, saying, like, you know, they're doing all of this stuff, they're going through all of this business, and it looks, from the outside, it looks like swirling and chaos. But on the inside, you just need to know that their masculine energy is they're very protected in that space, both by, you know, the people around them. They've got this parachute, but also, you know, their own guides, spirit, the universe. They're very well protected. The other thing that they want to talk about is, you know, okay, I'm going to try to keep this super brief. My neighbor, remember how last week my sage that hardly ever burns, like I have a hard time keeping it lit, was like burning like crazy, and I was like, what is going on? It turned out that my neighbor ended his own life, like kind of around the time that was happening, and they found him a few days later, and oh gosh, and I just really, what I felt, I won't go too much into all of that, but what I felt was my own counterpart had joined me in energy, and was serving as a protector, as a guardian for me as I was doing, like, of course my guides are always around me, but he had joined them as a guardian. As a guardian energy while I was doing some really heavy psychopomp work in my sleep. I do it in my sleep. But I had felt his presence just so much, and once that whole scenario next door unfolded and I understood everything that had been happening, you know, I just went, oh wow, okay, and what I realized was that I was not allowing I wasn't allowing my own counterpart to be on equal footing with me, that I was always the one kind of holding everything together. And that's not really about my counterpart. It's really more about like me in life. Like I would not allow anybody else to hold anything together. Like I wanted to shoulder the load by myself, and which is crazy. That's just really foolish. And that has been like a frustration that we have with our partners sometimes, is that they try to shoulder the load by themselves, but then in our good intentions to help, it's like we kind of take away their power a little bit. So this is as much about them being protected in whatever they're going through as it is about them being a protective guardian energy to some more of the people around them as well. And understanding, like kind of allowing that to be the case. Like this is really about, like I feel like some of the lessons on our side this week are around allowing ourselves to lean into their energy. We always talk about how we're the stabilizing ones, right? But this is also like, allow yourself by the same token, in equal measure, to lean into the energy that they bring into that partnership. Because if you don't take that seriously, that they have something that they're offering, then you're denying them their own place in the capital U union that we all have been talking about. Okay, all right. Now we're going to move into the box flower cards. This is what's blossoming in their garden. I just thought this was they had 2 cards jump out. So they have gorse first, and this is about hope. And this is such an echo in some ways of the hope discussion on this side. So this one was about being kind of resigned, like, oh, well, I guess this is just the way it is. And this one is about hopelessness, stagnation, like really giving up hope or any pursuit of change. And I feel like the reason this card is coming up is not because that's where they are, but because they are cycling out of that place. And so this card says on the back, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who have kept on trying when there seems to be no hope at all. And this is a direct echo of Akat and dedication. Okay, so this gorse energy, what's blossoming in their garden, is this renewed sense, this renewed hope, renewed faith that they are going to get back on the horse. They're getting back in the saddle, and they're like, why have I been telling myself this story? Like, no, I'm tired of feeling this way. And I know that this is available, so I'm going to go for it. And so that's coming in for them. That's something that's blossoming in their garden. The other card is impatience, and it's about, the whole lesson here is about patience. So they want to, like, okay, I don't want to feel like this anymore, and they hope it's like, and it's like, no. You have to wait, and you have to descend the entire way from the plane to the ground, and you can't go any faster. If you go any faster, you go splat. So that's not in your interest. Going faster is not in your interest. So so it says the seed pods explode when disturbed, scattering them up to 7 meters. Impatience, meaning impatience, refers to this method of dispersal. Patience is the companion of wisdom. And this really is, it's like when the seeds explode, they just like go scatter everywhere. Their energy is a little bit like that, because they're trying to do like everything. They're trying to overhaul their whole entire life. And it's like, no, look, just work on the one thing at a time, and kind of, or even if it's not one thing at a time, allow incremental progress in all of the places. But these two, it's like they cycle between, okay, I have hope, and then getting impatient, and then losing hope because it's not happening fast enough. Okay. All right, continuing on. I'm going to actually go, so I mentioned that we have we had 2 tree cards this week. One of them is Hawthorn again. And I had to go and look to find out, like I did more, I was like, am I missing something here? And Hawthorn, and I'm going to read it. Hawthorn is one of these, like the additional message that I was missing, this is about, again, balance. And it says, Hawthorn counsels not to spend too much time hoping for things, specifically relationships. So this is It's this card. When we are like, oh, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? It doesn't happen like that. It comes in like a bottle on the ocean, or, or like it comes, it comes in like seeds on the wind. You can't plan that. Oh, see, completely, oh gosh, and this is like, completely immersing yourself in daydreaming about the perfect mate often means you will miss the real opportunity when it presents itself. Likewise, in other matters, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that doesn't really matter. So it's like, so this card was at the same time, it was acknowledging like, yes, things are coming in, like you're getting, like the integration is happening, but it's not going to happen the way you think. It's not going to ride in on a horse. It's not the cowboy coming in. It's something more serendipitous, like seeds on the wind, like a message in a bottle. It's not something you can plan or expect, or, I go to the sea at 2:00 every day because that's when the messages come. Like that's it. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so that's hawthorn. The other tree in the garden this week is ash. And the key message that they had for ash this week is really about like where in mythology ash exists. So Poseidon, Thor, and Mars are associated with ash. Odin is associated with ash, has a spear of ash, and in a lot of places ash is associated with protection from drowning. And I think that's really interesting because like our whole thing on our side was about like we push all of this ocean energy out. Now water is about emotion, and this is about not drowning in our own emotions, or not drowning in the emotional places, like in our own emotions, like on our own desires, like not drowning in our own desires, not drowning in these old things. I think it's interesting. These kids, they're not out, waist deep in the water. They're back down around their ankles again, And that was kind of like we had the Queen of Seas before, and she was only up to her about thigh high in the water. And it's still like, this is about allowing yourself to swim out only to the depth that you can handle, and this being a protection, against being, swept out by your own emotional tides. Okay, so I like that a lot. I'm gonna skip or kind of jump, or I'm gonna insert this in the mix. So this is a soul card. This is the soul energy for the week. You see what I'm talking about with all the swirling? But here we are. It's the two counterparts again, and they're linked. There's a linking here, and there's circularity here. This is cycles. It's as much, but it's also wholeness and zero and the womb so but there is still like a little bit of kind of that swirling energy. So it's not, last week we were looking directly at each other, and this week it's just slightly different. It doesn't feel like, this doesn't feel like forward or backward movement. Like it doesn't feel like progress or even or like a regression. It feels like okay, so now we're looking at each other, now we're entwining, and now we're moving in a different way, but we're still linked together. So this just seems like the next thing. Okay, all right. And then finally, sorry, I realized I went to the garden and then forgot to do the overall energy between the partners. And I love this, so I'm using a different deck altogether. This is Nature's Pharmacy deck, and I love this, you guys. We got chocolate grown by the Mayans, and the Aztecs, and marshmallow, and so this is so not about like the history and lore or anything like that. It's chocolate and marshmallow, and if you are in the northern hemisphere, it is welcome to spring. And go get yourself some ice cream, go get yourself some, like a chocolate mousse, get yourself just a really nice, cool treat that is just a treat and playful and fun and all about the lightness and sweetness that is life, okay? And by the same token, if you are in the southern hemisphere moving into fall and winter, go get yourself some hot chocolate, get yourself something rich and again, sweet, so that you can really just be in the sweetness and the beauty and wonderful. Like, it is a very visceral thing to just feed yourself something wonderful. Okay, it's not cleansing. You know, these aren't cleansing, these aren't clearing. This is just delicious. You know, just be in it because it's delicious and wonderful and all of the great stuff that life is. Okay, see why I wanted to end on that note? All right, everybody, thanks again so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you next week. Bye-bye.